Yo, what up? This is Deuce. Welcome back, Red Zone in the Lab. Today, we're going to preview the Washington Commanders versus the Cleveland Browns. And joining us today, Matt Fontana, host of At Big Play, the At Matt Fontana show. He's going to come tell us a little bit about the Browns and what we can expect from this Sunday's matchup between the two. Right after this, we're going to have Matt.
Shout out Red Zone Lab podcast.
Hey, what up, y'all? It's Benjamin St. Jude's, DB for the Washington Commanders. I want to give a big shout out to Red Zone in the Lab podcast.
Welcome back, Red Zone in the Lab podcast. I am Deuce, and joining us today, Matt Fontana. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm good. Well, I could be better, Deuce. Browns are 1-3. It's been a tough one, and we thought Washington would be this nice little pushover game, and then Jaden Daniels has become one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. So could be better, man. But we got the Guardians in the playoffs. They start this weekend, so things are good, man. Things are really good.
Yeah, for sure. When we have new guests on here, we always look to build relationships. We just don't look to have one time. We like to build relationships here. So give us a little bit of background of who you are, what you do. Are you actually a Browns fan? I mean, I could tell by the back. Look like you're a Cleveland guy. But sometimes a lot of the media that cover teams come from different places, and they're not actually fans of the team.
No, yeah, I'm born and raised in Cleveland. Really never left. I even went to college here. So I'm born and raised Cleveland. Grew up without a football team because I was, 4 years old or 5 years old when they left. And I was 9 when they came back. So I never really understood why we didn't have the Browns for a couple of years. But yeah, born and bred Clevelander. I was at ESPN Cleveland for 13 years prior to my stop at Big Play. So I've been in the media for almost 15 years now, straight out of college, covering the Browns and the Cavs and the Guardians and Ohio State and all that. But Browns have always been, my biggest passion. I've been working at Big Play now for over a year and a half, doing a show for them on the digital side of things, which I think is really exciting. Obviously something a lot about, doing the digital social media side of things. So, it's been great. I'm really blessed to say I've been able to do this job in a town much like Washington, where people love their football team, and it's not always been easy to love our football team, but root really hard for them. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and again, I've seen a lot of stuff in 15 years of doing this, but it's been quite the journey. And, again, every year we think we got something, and something just seems to pop up and kind of send our team off into the jettison.
I mean, outside of Cleveland, Ohio has been an exciting place the last 15 years.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's been very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, the Cavs, with LeBron and the coming back there, and it's even the Guardians. In 2016, the Cavs won the title. Mm-hmm. The Indians at the time were in the World Series, probably should have beat the Cubs if there had not been a rain delay, taking them to Game 7. And then again, this actually, it's funny that this calendar year of 2024, because technically the Browns made the playoffs in 2024 in those 2023 season. Cavs were a top 4 seed in the East, and the Guardians are in the playoffs now. It's the first time since 1995 that all 3 of the teams in the same calendar year were in the postseason. So again, it's tough for the Browns, but there's a lot of optimism. The Guardians, again, people feel really good about them potentially getting the ALCS again if they can advance through the first round. And then, the Cavs, Donovan Mitchell re-signed. So that's really big for the Cavs, and expect a top 4 seed for them. And, it's unfortunately of you mentioned the last 15 years. That's kind of how it's been, of loving the baseball and basketball teams, and then whatever the football team can give you. Is just
I mean, us was baseball and hockey, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's what's been carrying us the last 15 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, there's a lot of comparisons too, I think, between the Nationals and the Guardians, and our hockey team's down in Columbus, but you kind of sub in the basketball team. So yeah, a lot of comparisons. And this is, again, even with the Browns struggling, there's a lot of optimism for the baseball team, which is a lot of fun. And this town comes alive, for the playoffs. We got kind of bougie with the playoffs in basketball, though, because of LeBron. we were just like, oh yeah, we'll be back in the finals again, or TNT will be here every week. But there's something really, really special about playoff baseball in this town. So I'm excited for next week. I am.
Yeah, for sure. Let's get into a little bit of the Browns. Just to go back a little bit, what were the preseason expectations for the Browns?
Yeah, I mean, there were people that thought they could contend for the AFC North. Obviously, the Baltimore Ravens being really, really good, expecting them to come back, a big bounce back for the Cincinnati Bengals that you expected that we didn't get. And then, nobody really saw this coming for the Steelers. But this season was going to be really all about figuring out about Deshaun Watson. And, he has been here for the 2 years. First year was suspended for the majority of the season. Then he comes out last year, shoulder injury, surgery. It was all about this season was finding out if he was going to be the franchise quarterback for the Cleveland Browns on a $230 million contract with everything that is tied up with him. This season was truly about finding that answer. And through 4 games, I don't know if we have it. He's a little bit better. And I'm sure we'll talk more about him coming up. But the expectations were the Browns were going to compete for the playoffs again. And at this point, it doesn't seem to be the case. I had them as a wild card team. I did not have them winning the division, but I thought they were going to compete for a wild card spot. So the expectations were relatively high. And, that's the unfortunate thing about the Browns. It seems like every year they have expectations, they fail to meet them. And the years they've played really well are the years we expected them to struggle. And that's the years that they've made the playoffs over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and the Deshaun Watson, like the story is vast, right? It's a lot to talk about when you mention the Deshaun Watson, but the Houston Texans, Deshaun Watson, that was for a few seasons, it was top 5 in the league. Have you seen that player yet, or have you even seen? If not, have you seen glimpses of that player?
I guess glimpses. You're right. There's like a couple of throws here and there, and a battle. And I would say battle, but a conversation that I had a lot this offseason and training camp was Browns fans need to reset who they think Deshaun Watson is. And I go, if he gets back to that 2020 form, granted his team is 4-12, but leading the league in passing and all that, I don't think that player exists anymore. I really don't think that player is there anymore. That's so what you got to do is try to rebuild him back up to just be a serviceable, above average level starting quarterback. And people will freak out. Oh, you paid him $230. He's worth more than that. Or you thought you were getting this player. And I go, the sooner Browns fans understand that guy is probably never coming back. That player of him in Houston, that he really did put fear in other teams. And you're right, was a perennial MVP pick. That player's gone. So now you just have to rebuild him back up, almost like a rookie quarterback, to just try to get him back to a serviceable level. And it's been a really slow grind. It's been a really slow time to get him back there, because last year was basically a waste, with the injury. There were some plays and there were some games that he looked all right. Then you start this season out bad against the Dallas Cowboys, okay against the Jags, bad against the Giants, and a little better against the Raiders last week. But the problem is he's leading the league in pressures. He's been hit almost 60 times through 4 games. The offensive line is injured. They have backups in there. We lost our starting offensive line, lost our offensive line coach, Bill Callahan, which is one of the best in the league.
Yeah, we know.
That's right. You guys remember. All right, exactly. And it's funny you mentioned Washington, Greg Williams. I do shows with Greg here on Big Play, former Washington head coach. Yeah, so Greg is the best. But yeah, I mean, Bill Callahan, how good he is at his job. So it's like it's hard because you want to sit there and rip Watson, or at least make a declaration if you think he's good or not, but we can't because the offensive line and the rest of the offense has been so bad.
Yeah, and when I think of Deshaun Watson and what he brings, even here, a lot of times we get so caught up in contracts, right? We get caught up in contracts, we get caught up in draft position. Once you're drafted, once that contract is signed, you are who you are, right? Like, just because you make $230 million guarantee doesn't mean you're going to be the best player in the league, right? Like,
no, it's
that's just your value up too.
Well, and that's what they signed you to, right? That's what they had to get him from going to Atlanta. Deshaun Watson was on his way to Atlanta, and the Browns somehow swooped in, and they didn't. But they said they didn't tell him about that contract, or he didn't know about it, which I think is just completely fake. But it's like, yeah, you're right. I agree with you 100% because people didn't like this, but it was what I said. I go, of all those guarantees, because remember, Deshaun Watson's contract was under the microscope after yet another lawsuit and all that.
Yep.
And they were ripped through, oh, this is in this contract. This is it. And I said, of that $230 million contract, the one thing that's not in there? A guarantee he plays well. Of all the guarantees that are in there, of all the writing and all the language, and you can't go skydiving and you can't play basketball, you can't go on a trampoline, of all those things written in there, one thing that I know was not written in that contract is that it's guaranteed to play well. So that's where I have truly set the contract aside. I don't really care about it. The money is spent already. If there's a time they need to get out of this contract, that's for Andrew Berry, the general manager, to figure out. But I'm with you. I set the contract aside. It doesn't matter to me.
All right. So what about the offensive scheme? Is the offensive scheme in Deshaun's favor, the offense's favor? Is there a connection there? Is it a disconnect? Tell us a little bit about the scheme.
Yeah, so I talked to Warren Sharp on my show about a month ago before the season really kicked off, and Warren gave me a worry where he says what Kevin Stefanski wants to do and what Deshaun Watson wants to do not mesh. Do not mesh.
Works.
You're right. Watson wants to spread out 10 personnel, receivers, throwing it all over the yard. Kevin Stefanski's better with running backs and tight ends on the field, and history has proven that's what each of those guys want to do. Now, Kevin Stefanski, two-time coach of the year, he's trying, right? He's going to try to find a way to get his quarterback up to speed, but if his quarterback's not making the right reads, we have a lot of film people on Twitter that are ripping Deshaun Watson for not seeing wide open guys or not making the right throws. Then they bring in Ken Dorsey, right? Former Bills offensive coordinator that they thought, okay, maybe he could help get to the Josh Allen spread offense. I have no idea what Ken Dorsey is or isn't. I really have no idea what impact he has had on the field or not. So as far as the scheme goes, they just get Nick Chubb back today from the PUP list, and he's on a 21-day window, so he will not play this weekend coming off his horrific knee injury. The offensive line at best right now is missing two of their starters, if not three. Juwan Jones is injured. They have two other guys hurt. Wyatt Teller's on IR. So the scheme, I don't know if they have an identity. That word keeps getting brought up over the last couple of weeks. The Browns do not have an offensive identity. There's nothing that they do really well, and there's nothing that they can really lean back on and say, this is what we're going to do to get us out of this hole. Again, they're missing Nick Chubb. They can't run the football, and Deshaun Watson struggling throwing the football. At times, he's got throws here and there or a single drive that he looks okay. But the issue is they really don't have an identity on offense. Right now, it's going to be on Deshaun Watson. If they're going to win the game on Sunday, it's going to have to be him throwing multiple touchdowns and pushing the ball down the field. But we haven't seen that yet.
On the defensive side of the ball, you have my favorite player. He's my favorite player. I think he's the best defensive player once Aaron Donald retired. The dude can go up and down. He can just stand over you. It's like he just do what he wants. He can play middle linebacker. It's like, and I know he's kind of, hampered, but even hampered with both feet, he's still probably the best player or top 5 best player in the league. But what does that defense like that? I mean, you all has had one of the best defense the last few years. Just tell us a little bit about why this defense is so good.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately they're not right now. That's people just expected that carryover with Jim Schwartz.
Yeah.
They were the best defense last year. They're struggling this year. I think it's a couple of things. Myles Garrett is battling these feet injury, and the problem is he's still out there, but he's not all that effective. And the issue with that is the entire defense is predicated on him. The entire defense is predicated on Myles Garrett eventually getting to the quarterback. That's how they play it. That's how the DBs are coached, and that's how they run their scheme. He's getting to the quarterback, but he's only playing 50% of the snaps now, or his snap count has just continued to go down with 2 different feet injuries. Both feet are injured, and it's something that probably won't be fixed this season. He's going to need surgery after the season. So that hampers everything. Then the other pass rushers, Zadarius Smith, Obo Okoronkwo, MIA. These guys have been nowhere to be seen, at least impactfully, over the last couple of games. D-tackle's been fine. They just got Mike Hall. There was their second-round draft pick. They expected him to potentially be a starter. He had a domestic violence situation. He missed the first 4 games. He's going to miss this weekend as his final one of the NFL suspension that they handed down. So the D-line's been struggling a little bit. Linebackers, it's been Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Watch out for him, number 6 on Sunday.
We know him.
He is a great player.
He's one of the we shouldn't have got Jameis, should have got him players.
Yeah, he is a really, really, really good player. So he'll be making plays on Sunday as he has been. And then the secondary, from a name standpoint, should be one of the better ones in football.
Yeah.
Denzel Ward is an elite top corner, and he
Yeah.
is playing that way, but he's also on a snap count with a shoulder injury. Greg Newsome is a former first-round pick. He's playing just fine. It's MJ Emerson who we watch, and MJ is a third-round pick. He's in his third year now. He's a massive corner. He's 6'2". He can run, but he's had a horrible start to the season. He's had 2 great seasons the last couple of years. People thought, wow, what a gem you found here. Now he's getting picked on, and now he's getting targeted, and his stats and the grades are all coming out that he can't hold his own right now. So what they can do to try to fix him up, we'll have to see. Safeties, they lost their starting safety, Juan Thornhill, to IR. Grant Delpit's their other safety. He's very good out of LSU, in my opinion. So again, when I think about what the Commanders want to do, you would imagine Denzel Ward's going to be on Terry McLaurin a lot, but Jim Schwartz will not have him shadow McLaurin. He'll play Denzel and Newsome or MJ as right and left corner. So that's maybe a little tip towards Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury about being able to move Terry McLaurin around. Zach Ertz, I don't think the Browns have ever really covered the tight end all that well. So defensively, there's certainly some holes that they have to get shored up.
Matt, Terry ain't moving a lot. Like,
he
ain't moving. He's gonna be over there on the left side. So
that's where he stays.
That's pretty much. I mean, he might move a little. He might motion some or whatever. But
yeah,
I mean, that's something that we have not seen yet.
Yeah.
Is him moving consistently. So that's I don't think he's going to move a lot. And just to stay with defense a little more, what's your kind of base formation? I know most teams is going to like this nickel package more because of the offense is going more to 3 wide receiver sets. But what is that base, or what does that look like on the defense as far as formation?
Yeah, it is 4-3 base, but you'll see a lot of 4-2. The nickels are Greg Newsome, and you'll see Cam Mitchell, who's a young guy out there. Your base will be that 4 down front, and really wide 9 is the big term that you hear a lot with Jim Schwartz. He plays them wide. Very rarely do you see the 5D tackles, but I'll tell you this, dude. I'm trying to remember. I don't think I've seen a pass set this year, or any play, I should say, on the defense where they don't have 4 down linemen. So they're playing the 4 base. When they go to the 2 linebackers, it's usually Jordan Hicks, who's had a great year for the Browns at linebackers, the Mike linebacker, and Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. And then they will like to bring in their defensive back. So again, they're like a lot of teams. They like to go sub, and they'll bring in the extra DB, but you're almost always going to see 4 defensive linemen, and usually blitz heavy too. And I think that's something to watch maybe for Jaden Daniels this Sunday too, is Jim Schwartz bringing that pressure. If he's not able to create it, which has been the tough thing to do with just the 4, he will bring the linebackers, and he's also not very afraid of blitzing defensive backs either. He does like to do that.
You've probably mentioned a few. I'm going over the offense and the defense, but just for this question by itself, just give me a couple impact players that you believe is going to have a major impact on the game on the offense and defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, offensively, it's got to be Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy. There's a lot of scuttlebutt this week about Amari Cooper. He had drops. He leads the league in drops so far, which is just so uncharacteristic for him. He's on a 1-year deal with the Browns. He needs money for next year. Stress. He's getting snippy with the media. Like, there's a lot going on with Amari Cooper. But if he can play well, he's still Amari Cooper. Jerry Jeudy's been fine. The one to probably watch, though, is David Njoku. He's been out since week 1 with an ankle
He's coming
injury.
back, right?
He's coming back. Yeah, he's going to play this weekend. So we'll watch out for him. He should be an elite tight end, and I would think that Watson's going to be able to find him for Njoku. Defensively, I'm going to say Obo Okoronkwo and Zadarius Smith. You know what you're going to get out of Myles Garrett, even with the bad feet. It's got to be pressure from somebody else. And if it's interior with Dalvin Tomlinson, Quentin Jefferson, one of those other guys on the D tackle room, maybe. But I'm going to look at Obo Okoronkwo, Zadarius Smith. They have got to step up. Plus, they also got to keep Jaden Daniels in the pocket and set the edge, because he's got the speed to get to the outside. So those are 2 guys I'm going to look a lot at for this defense coming up on Sunday.
And we kind of talked about the injuries. Nick Chubb is his 21-day window. It's open, so he probably doesn't play. Njoku is coming back. I think you mentioned, of course, we know about Myles Garrett and what he's dealing with. And I think you said Ward is Ward, on the snap count.
Yeah, he's got a shoulder injury. It sounds like it's getting better. as he goes through it. The biggest injury for the Browns is their offensive tackle. So they have
Yeah.
three guys it's Jed Wills, former first-round pick, who's normally their starting left tackle, Jack Conklin, who they signed from Tennessee years ago, all-pro right tackle, and then they have a second-year guy named DeJuan Jones out of Ohio State.
Yeah.
He's a mid-round
Need
pick.
one of him.
He's 6'8",
Yeah.
I mean, he's just a massive human being. So here's where we at. Jed Wills, knee injury last year, came back for the Jacksonville game, re-injured the same knee, didn't play this past weekend. Jack Conklin, out since week 1 of last year, has not played at all this year. On the way back from the knee injury, he picked up a hamstring injury. So that's why he's missed the last couple of games. Then there's DeJuan Jones. He's been out there, but he's been playing terribly. And I think it's mostly because of a knee injury that he's been dealing with. All three of those guys might play this weekend. I have no idea. We'll talk to Kevin Stefanski or hear from him on Wednesday, and he kept saying the same thing day to day. He did rule out both Conklin and Wills last Friday, so maybe he'll do the same for this weekend. But I think there's a shot that because originally what they were going to do was bring Conklin back and put him on the left side and keep DeJuan Jones on the right side while Jed Wills was out. The flip was Wills actually came back sooner. They put him on the left side, kept DeJuan Jones on the right. Wills got hurt. DeJuan Jones playing hurt, and we still haven't seen Jack Conklin. So they have three guys while having none is basically the easiest way to do it, where you got the three, but you don't know who's going to play. And also, I don't know how effective they're going to be with Conklin coming back a year out of football and Jed Wills, in essence, being out a year of football. He only played like a half before he got hurt. So it's a real issue with the Cleveland Browns on their offensive line from that injury standpoint on exactly what they're going to do.
All right. How will this game play out?
So I think the thing will be, can the Browns put up points? I know Jane Daniels is going to score touchdowns. This defense right now is a little broken. They couldn't show up, but I'm a big believer, like I'm sure a lot of people are, in Jane Daniels. My question is going to be is if this offense is going to show up. I could see this being a bit of a shootout type of game if the Browns offense can show up. And there are obviously some things in the Washington side of things that they can take care of or, take advantage of. But my issue solely lies as if the Browns offense is going to be able to score. So I think this might be a shootout. I kind of unfortunately like Washington in this game for a lot of reasons. I just think they're hot. I think they're at home. And this is a real pivotal game for the Browns where I could see their mind being other places. Because if we lose this game, I think the season's over. And you fought a 1-4 seasons. Playoffs are a far cry. Depending on how Watson plays, I guess could maybe change that narrative. But I'm leaning Washington for this game, and I think it could be a high scoring, both teams in the high 20s, maybe even 30s.
For sure. Thank you so much, Matt. This was awesome. And again, like I say, we like building relationships. So especially in the off season, we just doing our around the NFL. We would definitely reach back out, but just let everyone know that's why, because like right now I don't know if you're familiar with Twitter Spaces, but yeah. So we've been with the Browns the last couple games, so I'm sure they're going to watch this. So if anyone that's not following, just let them know where to find you, how to find you.
Yeah, easiest thing is on Twitter at Matt Fontana 83. That's my personal one, but then I always retweet our show, which is at Matt Fontana Show on Twitter, YouTube. We're on Twitch as well. But YouTube and Twitter are pretty much our main drivers there. But just follow me on social media at Matt Fontana 83, and I'm always retweeting the show.
Again, thank you so much. And thank to all of you that is watching, that have listened. Remember, do it because you love it, not because it loves you. One beat, one sound.